Welcome to the Radical Audacity podcast. I'm Tiffany Kane, your host. On this podcast, you are going to meet people that walk their own path, live life on their own terms, let go of other people's rules and expectations and the shoulds in life, and instead live life in their own truth, integrity, and authenticity. This podcast will give you the inspiration you need to live your own radically audacious life. Enjoy the episode. Hello, fantastic listener. I am thrilled to be here with you today. And I have a really important question to ask you. Have you ever felt like you weren't quite living in alignment with what you really, really want? That you're kind of spinning your wheels, trying to live your life the way you think you should live your life? Perhaps you have a really great job. You've worked really hard to get to the level that you're at, and you're really proud of it. But something just does not feel right. I know how you feel, and so does today's guest, Jo Ingram. She was an advertising agency director, tons of experience in the advertising world, worked long and hard to get to a very high level, and got laid off during the pandemic. And when she got laid off, she really sat and looked at her life and what she wanted and decided to make a pretty radical change. I'm really looking forward to you hearing this episode today and getting back to me and telling me what you think of how Jo switched her life and what she's doing in her life and how that inspires you to live your life. Enjoy the episode. Hello, everyone. I am thrilled to be here today with Jo Ingram. As I told you in the introduction, we have a special connection. We keep bumping into each other in all kinds of groups, and it just became evident that Jo and I needed to get on each other's podcasts. So I am beyond thrilled to have you here today, Jo. Welcome to the Radical Audacity podcast.
Thank you so much, Tiffany. I'm really excited.
I am too. Now, you have a podcast called Goals with Soul, and your whole message is all about living courageously, authentically, in your integrity, in your authenticity, and letting that lead your way through life and business and all of that good stuff. You've built a business totally around that. So I would love to hear from you about your journey to get to this idea, because I'm guessing you didn't come out of the womb going, yes, courageous authenticity is what it's all about. I'm guessing you have a story behind that. I'd love to hear what led you to this point.
Absolutely. I mean, the complete opposite. I
Usually
came out of the womb as a conformist. First child, first person in my whole family to go to university, to go to college, academic, the good girl, doing all the things, and kind of didn't form major opinions about things. Just sort of sailed through the middle and kind of was happy to do so. But as I entered adulthood, some things were cropping up. Like I started developing beliefs that I wasn't as good as my best friend. I didn't even realize that until this year. So that was obviously deeply buried.
Wow.
And going through my 20s, just achieving, I got the big job for the big advertising agency, Ogilvy and Mather in London. I had done a tour of Japan and done the backpacking. I was just hitting all these milestones. By the time I was 27, I'd bought my first home with my then husband. And at 29, I gave birth to my first daughter. And that's where things really started to change, because I went through some real trauma in the birth that led to me nearly dying, and also meant that I had an emergency hysterectomy because I was losing so much blood. It was really dramatic.
Oh, that is traumatic.
Yeah. And I came out of giving birth to my first daughter, beautiful baby girl, in deep PTSD trauma. I'd been in intensive care for 2 weeks. My parents and husband were told that I wasn't necessarily going to make it. And like waking up in intensive care and finding out that this had been your birth experience wasn't exactly on my list of being in control and having everything work out perfectly. And it kind of threw all those balls in the air for me. I was like, right. So doing everything you're told and all the good stuff and planning the water birth and blah, 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 or anyone who's a mum out there kind of gets what that tale's all about.
Absolutely.
You get to this thing where it's like, well, that didn't work out. And actually, what am I doing with my life? What's the meaning here? Do I have to go back to the job? And how will I complete my family? I'm only 29 and I wanted more kids and all these things spinning around my head. And over the next few years, a lot of things started to change for me. 7 years later, I find myself remarried because my then husband and I separated when our baby was only 8 months old. And
oh, Jo.
I know, right?
Oh, Jo, so much stuff. Oh my gosh.
I don't want to like upset people even more, but the cat got run over and died the week after we separated. I was like, this can't be happening. I was in therapy at the time, unsurprisingly. And I remember, like, you have to laugh, going and seeing my therapist that week and saying, you're not going to believe it. And it's like, well, look, if things happen in threes, maybe I'm now off the hook. Maybe I can rebuild, right? I can laugh now. It wasn't funny at the time. But like, so fast forward 7 years later, me and my now husband flew to California in the States from our home in London to meet our twins, born with the help of a surrogate. And some things just really shifted for me. I realized that I and anyone can make the impossible possible. You know, at that point when I was 29 years old and I first thought, how will I complete my family? Will I do this through surrogacy? I had no knowledge, no connections, no resources. I was like, how could something so massive happen? And yet 7 years later, that dropped into place. And for me, the story kind of comes full circle. Because even though I did go back to advertising and I couldn't really find what I was supposed to be doing different in my career, over the next few years, it became clearer and clearer to me that culturally I just didn't fit. And the things that interested me weren't the conversations that were happening in the agency. I was becoming increasingly more spiritual and seeking different answers, attending weekend retreats and, you know, doing all that good stuff. And when the pandemic hit about a couple of months in, I was laid off from that career. Many in my industry were. And rather than feeling really upset and depressed, I was like, thank you, universe. I was like, because I wouldn't have done it for myself. You know, I'd been the good girl. You just got to do the responsible thing. And it doesn't matter if you're unhappy, just suck it up, buttercup kind of theory about life. And suddenly I realized that I didn't have to anymore, that I could be me. And I could express myself through my business however that suited me, whatever came through me. And coaching had always been on my heart. And although I initially thought, you know what, I'm going to do just business coaching and teach people what I've learned in corporate, it wasn't long before I realized that the more authentic I was, the happier I was. And not only that, the bigger transformation my clients were getting, because I was attracting those clients that were most aligned with my message. So it didn't take long before I realized that the best of the marketing experience I'd had for 20 years and what I now knew and what lit me up, my passion, blended into helping others to create their most magnetic mission for their business. And that's what I'm doing now. So yeah, that's a quick whistle-stop tour, but that's the story.
Okay. There is so much in that story. And there's so much, like, I feel like I want to sit with you with a cup of tea or something stronger and really get into your birth story, because, oh my goodness, we could get into that. But that's not what this podcast is about. Although I think I might want to touch on a few of those things because there's so many supposed to's in there that I think we can touch on. But what I want to talk about first is this idea that so often we won't make these decisions for ourselves. The decision is made for us. And then we're like, oh, thank you. That is exactly what needed to happen for me. These sometimes terrible life events, like losing a job is a pretty traumatic life event, is often exactly what we needed to happen. And I love that you turned that into, okay, this is my opportunity to step into who I really, truly am. So I want to dig into that more too. I think that is so powerful. Let's step back a little bit, though, into that birth trauma story, because you mentioned water birth, and all of you mamas, you know, I'm going to be right there with you. I had a traumatic, both of my births were very traumatic. And I know how the shoulds and the plans, when they don't go that way, send you into a massive tailspin. And I think I'd like to dig into that just on like a human level of the shoulds and all of these messages we get of whether it's this is what your birth should look like, this is what motherhood should look like, this is how your family should be built. You've turned all those on their head, right? Like you're really from your traumatic birth to getting divorced at when your child's 8 weeks old to getting remarried to family by surrogacy, like all of those shoulds you got rid of, like you did it your way. And so I want to dig into that for a second. And I think just really dig into the strength that takes and the knowing yourself inside that this is the path you wanted to take. So can we, I don't know if that's exactly a question, but do you feel like you can talk to that?
Yeah. And I want to say that the first thing that comes through me as you're asking this question is I did not feel empowered at the time, right? It's easy in retrospect. And I think that that's often how things happen. You know, I made a decision. I would really like to complete my family. And I saw surrogacy as that solution for us. And it's taking that one step. And I'm a big believer in the universe and, you know, the power of the law of attraction and so on. And I believe that when you have a thought that becomes a decision and it's a vision and it's so clear in your mind, you will find little clues that lead you step by step, but you won't know the how. You won't know how this is going to turn out. And, you know, hidden behind the big headlines of that story were so many pitfalls, so many hurdles, so many things that made me think this is never going to happen. I mean, one example, not everyone in the world might know this, but there was a massive volcano in Iceland that erupted. I don't know if you guys remember this. Well, this was some years ago. My daughter, who it was the result of this traumatic birth, just went off to college, right? So she's 18. So we're going back 19 years now. And this massive volcano with a name so long, I never could remember it even at the time, erupted and put an ash cloud over the whole of Europe, which meant that planes were grounded. And this was at the exact time that I needed to do my egg retrieval because I was going through IVF to create the embryos that our surrogate would carry. And I had to fly to the US to see my fertility doctor to have the egg retrieval. And this, if anyone knows IVF, is very sensitively timed. You cannot mess with this because it can be very, very risky. And meanwhile, not a single plane was taking off from anywhere in Europe. So you have this stuff going on that it's just like, this is crazy. And I phoned my fertility doctor and he's like, Superman. He was like, hey, Jo, this is no problem. It's all going to be fine. And I was thinking, how do you know this? And lo and behold, the day before we flew, the ash cloud lifted and my plane took off. And these are the sort of things that just kept happening through the process. It would seem like this is never going to happen. We had a failed first attempt and it didn't happen and so on. So through that story, I just kept saying, this is the outcome I'm going for. And what solutions exist. And I look back at that whole process. And even though back in 2004, I wasn't aware of the law of attraction. In fact, The Secret didn't even come out till 2006. I realized in retrospect that a lot of the things that we now understand as manifesting, I was living and I was doing. I was absolutely focused. I was buying booties before the twins were even conceived. I was like writing them letters. I was like, this is just happening. I was looking for signs and signals. I had a song that whenever it played, I was like, don't think I even called it the universe back then, but right, I'm being told that this is fine. Just keep going. And funnily enough, I've managed to translate a lot of that into how I live and the work that I do now. And I love how you posed the question about trials and tribulations and challenges and transforming those. Because even after I left my job and moved into coaching, it wasn't like that was happy ever after. In like 6 months in to being a new coach, I was completely burned out because I'd taken my wounded masculine or my type A personality, however you like to define it, my corporate culture straight out of where I'd been for 20 years, dropped it into my own business, was my own worst boss, was doing all the things. I was launching this program, this membership, this podcast, this doing. And actually, even my message at the time was about taking action. And I was attracting clients who really needed someone to help them take action. And they weren't already empowered. And I was feeling so drained, loving the people, but finding the work hard. And when I got to that point of burnout, I literally dropped everything, kicked off my shoes, went into the woods nearby where I live in East London, grounded, started learning about the divine feminine, started understanding what flow and intuition and the softer side of living really looks like. And that dialed for me even more authenticity and enabled that to flow through and to learn those lessons that I've been able to share since. I'm a great believer in the fact that we go through these traumas, big T, little t, to give us a new perspective, to build our souls, and also give us the opportunity to share that gift with others. So, I'm embodying that more than ever. Still work to be done, but that's our life's work, to keep leveling up, keep learning, even through the tough times.
Yes. Okay, so what you just said about the big T and little t traumas and those giving us the opportunity to recalibrate, I think is such a gorgeous way to look at trauma. If there's anything we're guaranteed in life, it's trauma. It's difficult time. It's things not going the way we should. It's loved ones dying. It's health issues. It's losing a job. It's having to move. It's your cat getting run over. It's whatever, like we are going to have those traumas. And we can either use those traumas as a lesson of somehow I'm not meant for this. This isn't my path. Life isn't meant for me. Or we can look at those traumas and say, okay, what is the lesson and how do I recalibrate? How do I learn from this? What do I take from this lesson and move forward? And I think it's really beautiful that you may have taken some time to curl up in a little ball. We all need
Definitely.
that time. You took your shoes off and reconnected with nature out in the woods, which is so vital. And then you said, let's recalibrate. I'm calling in the wrong clients. I'm being a terrible boss to myself. I'm not living the life I want to live. All of these should messages about how prolific I need to be and all the things I need to do. I'm completely taking them to the nth degree and killing myself, and let me recalibrate. I think that's a really beautiful lesson for us because we can't be our best when we are working off somebody else's shoulds, somebody else's rules, somebody else's ideas of what life should be like. And then we just keep re-traumatizing ourselves. What advice do you have for people that find themselves in that place where they're in that big T or little t trauma, they're burned out, they're not living life according to what's truly important to them? What advice do you have for people?
Oh, I love this question. So in my work, I go through a process called brand epics. But actually, in this broader question, I'm going to apply this to people who are not running businesses, like any people, because I think that the theory is really sound. And epics stands for 5 things. It's an anagram: experience, pain, interests, character, and skills. And I believe that our lives, when we incorporate understanding, knowledge, insights from all of these areas, allow us to live our most authentic selves, allow us to level up, to expand, and most of all, to enjoy ourselves. And of course, when we enjoy ourselves, when we allow joy and flow and ease into our lives, it attracts what we want. Now, I call that law of attraction, but equally, we all know that when somebody radiates a great positive vibe, we want to be around them. And that's true whether you want to attract clients, whether you want to attract friends, whether you want your kids to just be in a better mood around you, all of the things that we want, those connections through. When we're living our best lives and we're expressing ourselves authentically and joyously, those things can be called in. So I would advise that, I'll give you a good example.
Yes, example. And then I want to go through this epics piece by piece.
I was going to do this.
Let's go through that.
Oh,
beautiful, beautiful, beautiful. Yay.
Right. So experience. This is where we really lean into our strengths for what we've learned through our lives. And this applies to experience in your life, which can be motherhood. It can be a puppy mom. It could be like whatever it is that is important to you in your life. This is your experience, but it absolutely applies to your work experience, the things that you've learned, the skills that you have, the knowledge, your expertise that you can share. And so many people, particularly women, disenfranchise themselves by really not acknowledging their own brilliance in their area of their experience. Motherhood is often demeaned as, well, I'm just a mum. And the truth is that the experience that you gain as a mum can put you in so many different conversations in so many different places. But equally, if you lean into experience too much at the detriment of the other areas that I'll mention in a minute, you could end up living a quite joyless life. And that was what had happened to me in my first incarnation of my coaching job. I was like, okay, well, I worked in corporate, so I'm going to teach productivity, accountability, CEO strategies, because that's what I was embodying at that time. But actually, I had failed to include the other elements of brand epics in my business. And so it wasn't really that surprising that although I was running a business and I had clients, I felt really exhausted, unfulfilled, and it ultimately was unsustainable. So something had to give. And that's where this process actually was born, where I started to look at what I was bringing in and how that was working, and applied it to many other entrepreneurs and coaches, and saw that a lot of things were typical in their businesses. But as we're talking about now, I'm really enjoying applying this to general life, because our work and our lives are one. It isn't separate. We are holistic human beings. So pain. We've touched on that quite a bit in this conversation already. This is the traumas, the pain points, the things that you've been through, the struggles that mean that you have value to give in this area. Now, that can be as a coach, but equally that can be as a friend, as a carer, as an author, as a number of things that people who've been through something in their lives can share and inspire and help others to move through similar traumas, similar feelings. What I love about this as well is it doesn't have to be big T trauma. My experience of burnout is really typical of so many female entrepreneurs and coaches. I don't feel that I'm unique in that way, but my perspective and my learnings on it and what it's taught me and how I've taken that forward are something that only I can share. So never assume that you don't have something unique, brilliant, and special that you can bring into the world and share from a place that started as pain, that has become something that you have moved through and can now teach or share about?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, I'll move on. So I is
Yes.
for interests, and otherwise known as passion. So
Yeah, this is the good
interest
one.
and passion. When we ignore this area in our lives and in our businesses, we lack joy. We lack passion.
Mm-hmm.
We lack fun, and it shows. I'm calling out now to the mums who do all the things around the house and the kids, but they're not fun. It's just hard work all the
Mm-hmm.
time. It's drudgery and it shows. And I've been there. I was that mum. And sometimes I still am. And I have to remind myself that just because that was kind of how I got set through my own parenting and through, my experiences, we get to choose. And I can choose joy, fun, things that interest me, hobbies, my yoga, my walks in the woods, my baking with the kids. I can choose that at any point. I don't have to be serious. I don't have to lean into the hard work aspect of whatever it is that you're doing in life. And from a business perspective, that's when I realized that I was teaching accountability and productivity, but I was learning about the law of attraction and I was enjoying spirituality. I was joining Kabbalah sessions. I was exploring different podcasts. I was just doing all this stuff. And that was the conversation I wanted to be having. I was like, oh, have you read this book? And what did you think of Abraham Hicks? And have you, all these conversations. And I realized that if I brought that into my business and I attracted clients who wanted to talk about that all day, well, that's not work. That's joyous fun that also happens to be my business. So I started to fuse the two, and it didn't happen overnight. First thing after the clarity, courage. It's like, it's easy to say, oh yeah, I'm just going to do all of that. But then that little voice, that subliminal limiting belief voice pops up and says, who are you to do that? You're just one big fat imposter. Like, there are people out there that know more than you, been doing it longer than you. Stop. Just get small again. Get back in your box, as we say, where I come from. And it took me time to level up the courage to basically overcome the fear of judgment, of putting myself out there. I had this picture that these women bosses that I'd had back in my advertising agency would like be watching me and they would say, what is up with that woman? Has she joined a cult or something? Of course.
Isn't it funny? Okay, I got to pause there. It is so funny. These stories we tell ourselves about how people are watching us and what they're going to say, whether it's about steps we're taking in our business or things we're doing in our life or the weight we're gaining or the weight we're losing or the the way we're wearing our hair. We tell all these stories about how people are, oh, I bet that person is looking at me and saying this. And they probably aren't.
I mean, I knew they were
so worried about living their life. But we do it all the time. I catch myself doing it all the time. It's ridiculous. Oh my God. Okay. I want to dig into this passion piece really quick because this interest, this passion, I think this is vital. I think this is something that we are raised to think our passions and our interests are nice. Those are hobbies. But that's not going to be the way you're going to make your living. That's not your career. I mean, you hear it all the time. Somebody's like, I want to be an artist. I want to be a musician. Why don't you do that as your hobby? Why don't you be an accountant, a lawyer, a doctor, do something where you can make money. So in my job that I quit, this is my first year out of the job. I was in public education for 20 years and I was at the administrative level and looking to move forward, right? Looking to move more forward in administration and wasn't getting the jobs. And when I talked to my boss and said, okay, I've never had a problem getting a job before and I am so qualified. Can you please help me to understand what's going on? Do I need more qualifications? Is there something I'm missing? And she said to me, these are her words, I'm not kidding, Tiffany, you're just too passionate. And not everybody can meet your passion. You need to dial it back if you want to move forward in administration because people can't meet you where you're at.
Wow.
Yeah. And I was like, I'm in public education. This is kids and their future, and I'm too passionate. Like, what? Yes, I care. Yes, heck yes, I care about this stuff. And I particularly taught in a school district that was for low socioeconomic students, lot of students of immigrant families, first generation students, even students that end up being like DACA students, which is the bringing like students that are not legal immigrants and kind of giving them status as a student so they could go to college and stuff like that. And so those were the students that I taught. So heck yes, I was passionate about helping those kids, the kids that need the help the most. And so that shocked me. And that was my turning point. And when I realized I don't think I belong here, I've spent 20 years of my life here and my passion is not welcome. And it's time to be where my passion is welcome. And that to me was my big giant aha moment. So anyway, the passion piece I'm passionate about. Oh, heck yes. Take what you're interested in. Take what you're passionate about and let's build a life around that.
Yes, it should be a great part of what you do every day, not something that you reward yourself with at the end of the week if you've done all your chores and you've been a good girl and all of this. Oh, if I've been good, if I can find the time, I'll go to that yoga class. I'm like, now yoga goes on my calendar first. It's like, no, that's what I do to relax, to chill. It's going on the calendar, seeing my friends, time with my kids, all of this. And I'm by no means perfect. Sometimes I look at my calendar and I think, uh-oh, I seem to have messed this one up. But you have to just keep committing to a joyous life and keep showing up for it. And every time you find yourself not in your authenticity and not living the life that you really visualized, it's a time to check in with yourself. And I just found that through this process, I was checking in more and more and going, well, what is it that I'm enjoying? How can I incorporate that more into my day? And particularly for me, more into my work. So that was a big turning point. And I hear what you're saying about that passion piece, because people with that passion are made to create their own things in the world, and too many passionate people are stifled in the workplace. So I'm delighted that you're living your passionate dream and building something.
It's so great. And it's like when you do that, what you said about alignment, like things just start happening for you. Doors just start opening when you're like, okay, this is me. This is what I love. This is what I'm interested in. And I'm open for whatever comes from it. All right, here I am. So, okay, let's move into the C.
Yes, C, character and personality. So I found that I was living my life not respecting and loving my own personality and character. So I was toning myself down. I had been called emphatic a number of times. Might be a bit of a parallel with what your lady said about your passion. I was like, you are very emphatic. And of course, as a woman, sort of dialing into that little girl energy, it was a bit like, oh, I'm being called loud, bossy, pushy. Oh, I need to dial that back. I need to not express myself with quite so much punctuation in the way that I speak, or whatever that was coming across, the big gesticulation, which I'm currently doing with my hands. And there was that piece, but also the piece I mentioned earlier about how I was working with clients who I thought needed me, rather than working with clients that I really wanted to work with, because I was feeding off their energy as much as they were feeding off mine. This idea of energetic connection. And when I was getting into spirituality, I trained as a pranic healer. So I started to get more sensitive to energy. And I realized for the first time that I had like empath qualities, and I was absorbing a lot of the energy of other people. And when a client would work with me, I think it's crazy I'm even going to say this, because a year or two back, I wouldn't have said these words, but I'm going to go there. It's like when I'm working with a client, I'm channeling just the information is just coming through me about their messaging and about their purpose and all the things that they're with me to learn. And it's just coming through. But when I work with a truly aligned client who's fully energized, when I finish that session, I feel like I'm buzzing, I'm tingling, I'm excited. I'm like, yay, this is why I do this work. And that's what I wanted to feel. Whereas previously that wasn't the case. I was feeling drained and de-energized. So by leaning into your character and appreciating your personality and finding matches for yourself out in the world, whether that's through business or through friendships or through intimate partner, and just going, you know what, I'm meant to be with people who light me up. And if someone is sucking your energy and de-energizing you, I mean, what do we call it in Cosmo? We call them like energy vampires or whatever the popular vernacular is. It's like, be sensitive to it and put yourself in different situations, whether that means slightly shifting in your business to calling in new clients through your messaging, which is the path that I take to do that, or just through putting yourself out in a different energy, showing up in different places, not being negative. I mean, oh, sorry, I'm on a roll now. I've just thought of something else I really want to share. You know how, maybe you don't know, Tiffany, you tell me. Sometimes as women, we get into these friendships that are based on, I don't know if I can say the B word, but like bitching about stuff in our lives. Yeah. And we show up, we pour that big glass of red wine and we go, nah, 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 my husband, nah, 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 my job, nah, 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 my kids, and nah, 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 nah. And we bond like that. And I hadn't even realized that the best part of 20 years of friendships, the bonding came from mutual bitching about stuff. Oh, you think your husband's bad? Listen to what so-and-so, listen to what my one did. Oh, he's not helping out in that way. Listen to this story. And we this is like how society sets us up. This is like somewhere along the way, we were shown that this is how we relate intimately. And through this,
it's like the misery loves company thing, but then you just stay miserable.
Yeah, it's so
It's
negative.
like you're building misery upon misery.
And we're not lifting. I mean, sometimes we feel better for having a shoulder to cry on and somebody else to empathize.
That's different.
There's a place.
Different. Like I truly need support right now, and I'm truly having a difficult time. And can I talk through this with you? Is completely different from, I just need a bitch session and I'm going to bitch about my husband, and I'm going to bitch about my kids, and I'm going to bitch about my job, and I'm going to bitch about the traffic, and I'm going to, whatever it is, right? Like that is people like that. And I was a people like that for sure. In my first marriage, I was a people like that. And those were the people I hung out with. And now I just find I can't even, like, it's painful, like to be around that, because it hurts. It's like, that used to be me. That used to be me. And it hurts so much now to hear it.
Yeah. Well, I'm going to be
it.
real and say sometimes I still go there, right? I'm not going to say
I'm
like so evolved now that I don't sit in a bitch session once in a while. I do, particularly if the glass of red wine's gone down. It happens, right? But I want to spend most of my time lifting people up, feeling lifted, and seeking out that like energetic connection that lifts everybody up. So I'm just grateful that I've got that awareness now and able to make those choices. And that's C. That's character and personality.
Beautiful. And then S.
So
how are skills different from experience?
Okay.
I would love to hear your take on that.
Yes. Now, experience is deep-rooted. It's the things that we have knowledge of and we just know. Experiences we've been through. Skills are things that we've learned that are a little bit more, what's the word I want to use? I'm really sorry, you're going to have to edit this out. I've gone completely blank.
I'm
sorry,
fine.
my love. The word I want to use is, okay, coming back. Skills are a little bit more tactical. They're things that we pick up that actually just make our life a lot easier if we just recognize them. So in business, let me give you an example, because this is a really easy one for me to do. I hadn't realized that one of the skills I had from all those years in the boardroom was presentation skills, but not just having a skill, but like loving doing it, really love presenting. And when I started my business, I spent a lot of time in social media, posting on Instagram and doing stuff like that. Very little time showing up and speaking and sharing in that way. And it was only when I realized this, I was like, hang on a minute. If I have that skill and I like that skill, I get a lot of joy and fun from it, even though it scares me in many cases. But when I finish, I feel so full and so proud of myself and so excited. I need to do that more. This is a skill that is natural and innate to me, and one that means I can add more value to others and my clients and so on. And I think that a lot of people are sitting on skills that they have to make their lives easier, to move into flow rather than efforting and struggle, but are actually just not exploring them. And one of the pieces I love to do with clients is to dive into that and all of the 5 aspects, but really go like, what exactly are you good at? And the strangest things come out. And actually, when you start speaking them, you're like, yeah, I'm really good at that. I'm really good at horseback riding, but I haven't ridden in 15 years. It's like, okay, so what happens if you did that? And how would that change how you interact with your kids when they get home from school if you'd been for a ride that afternoon? Would that change? It's like, why haven't I even thought of stuff like that? And there are millions of different ways that can manifest, but starting to see little things. I mean, even like I went to I'm in the UK, right? So we have schools that are like Hogwarts. And I went to a school just like that. It was an all-girls school in a beautiful old manor house with twisty passages and all of that. But I was in this era when they felt that girls should be taught to touch type. So we used to go up the spiral staircase, up to this like lighthouse piece on the top of the building, and there would be quite old-fashioned PC computers with green screens, and we would learn to touch type. Now, how grateful am I that I learned to touch type, right? It's like, all these millennials with one finger, and I'm just like, what? Mind you, they're typing nearly as fast as me, and they'll certainly get me when it comes to writing text messages on my phone. Now, there's something that I'm not so fast on, but that skill meant that I was like, hang on a minute, I can type really fast. So could I add value at the end of a session by having typed that? Yeah, easily. And others are like, wow, that's such value. Wow, thank you so much for sending me this that would have been really hard for me to actually get to that point. That's just a tiny example, but there are so many.
There are so many skills that people don't realize are actually skills because they imagine, well, if I'm good at this, everybody must be good at this. But I know there are things that I value. Like if I could have somebody come in my house and just organize my mail, I would be in heaven because that is just something I can't manage to get organized, my mail. And there are people out there who naturally live an organized life. And it blows me away. How do you live so organized? Or there are people that naturally understand what foods to put together to get the best flavors in the most simple way. And I'm like, but how do those go together? Or designers who can walk into your house and look at it and go, well, if we move the couch here and we put the table here and we put this picture here and put some lighting and you're like, wait, I never knew my house could look like that. There are just so many skills out there that people take for granted that are so natural to them. Putting a great outfit together, putting makeup on.
Yes.
I admire people so much that can do fantastic makeup and hair and outfits. It's like those are skills that people take for granted that are so incredibly valuable. So valuable. And I love it that you're bringing up, let's pay attention to your skills. Let's pay attention to what you're naturally good at or what you have learned to be good at by training or what have you. these are skills that you can use. I
Yeah,
love
and
that.
certifications. Like, how many certifications are hidden under the mat? It's like
Oh
so
my
many people say,
God.
"Oh yeah, well I got qualified in X, Y, and Z." Sorry, I stuttered because I would have said X, Y, and Z, but then I was trying to say X, Y, and Z, so I landed in the middle. But but they're like not even realizing that's exactly what happened to me, because when I qualified and I got certified as a pranic healer, and then I did a breathwork facilitation, it took me ages before I got that light bulb moment that went, why don't I do this for my clients? But then I was like, but hang on a minute, you're a business coach who teaches business strategy. So it took a leap to go, but it doesn't have to be. You have a skill.
Right.
Why can't you integrate it? And obviously I found that route and found those clients that like that blend. But, those certifications, qualifications, things that we have worked for and then have completely dismissed can be integrated back into our lives in a completely new and exciting way.
I love this. I love how you are so holistically looking at all the different parts of you, all the things that make you who you are, and let's bring them together and really live a full life with all these pieces put together. I think that's so beautiful. And I think this is the perfect segue for us to move into some of the really fun questions. So are you ready for some fun questions?
I'm game.
Yay. Okay. So I asked the same 3 questions of all of my guests. It gives us a chance to learn a little bit of a different side of you. We are big book nerds over here in Radical Audacity Land. So what is a book that you are enjoying right now?
Okay, I love this question. And I have to say that I read so many books. It's unbelievable. I always have 2 or 3 going on the Kindle, and there's one on paper by the bath and all of this stuff going on. And I read a lot of self-help books, but I really want to share a book that I read recently that was fiction, because I have not read a lot of fiction recently. I always think to myself, well, if I'm going to read, I might as well read something that's going to help me grow in some way. And it's a timely way to say this, I'd forgotten that I had such a passion for fiction and reading books. And I'd been part of a book club with some mum friends for like 5 years, and we were so dedicated. Then when the pandemic came, the book club kind of fell apart and never really got back together. And I'd stopped reading fiction, so I wasn't showing up. Anyway, my good friend's like, I'm doing it, and this is the book. And the club isn't for like another 2-3 weeks, but I went through the book in 2 days. It was that good. And it's called, it was the author's very first novel. It's called How the One-Armed Sister Sweeps Her House by Sherry Jones. And I was absolutely outstanding. I thought it was beautiful.
Okay.
It's gritty.
Okay.
It's very real life, but absolutely mesmerizing.
I think we totally miss how many powerful life lessons are learned from fiction, especially really beautiful, well-written fiction. We think we have to read self-help to grow. I know for me, so much of the lessons that have actually stuck with me are the ones I have gotten from fiction books. And I'm so glad you just said a fiction book, because that is so powerful. And that's my passion. And this is definitely going on my list. This is a book I've been wanting to read, and the fact that you're reading it,
you've heard of it.
Excited about. Yes. So I'm excited to read it. I know. It's like, oh,
we'll have to do a book club for the 2 of us and have a chat about it.
I love it. I love it. I love it. Can I recommend a book to you about living in integrity, since you're on the fiction train? Okay, it is a book. I'm going to grab it. Called The Midnight Library by Matt Haig. This is all about regrets, the regrets we have in life. And what are they really? And living in your integrity. And it is the most beautiful book I have read in a long time. So if you're on a fiction,
I really am
kick.
I've written it down.
This is one that will stick with you.
Thank
you.
Will
stick with you. Okay. And I'm going to read The One-Armed Sister. I'm so excited right now. Okay. Second question. They're making a movie of your life, and you get to pick 3 songs for the soundtrack. What are your 3 songs?
Okay, there were so many to choose from, but I'm going to go with Brown Eyed Girl. I have brown eyes, unsurprisingly. And people have sung this to me. We've danced to this. This has been a song that's just all about good times and being in love and having fun. So, yeah, that's my first one.
Love Brown Eyed Girl. It is so classic. I absolutely love it. Okay. Second song.
Okay. This is a song by Yaz, and it's called The Only Way Is Up. It hit number 1 in the UK in 1988, which was the year that I became temporarily aware. I was 13 years old and I knew it was 1988. I was buying, those albums. Actually, they were on vinyl, but they were like greatest hits 1998. Now hits. So, and I had to have all of them, right?
Those.
Before they reach, now 80 or 200, you had to stop somewhere. But I had this first album, Hits 1998, and this was on it. And I was at the youth club and I was, hanging out with friends and boys. And that was a song that really marks for me a coming of age. And also I love the thing, The Only Way Is Up, which is that we can always just start again. We can always just move on up kind of thing. So the message was really good too.
That's a great one. And I love those. I can totally see the image. I graduated high school in 1992 and I was raised super strict and was not allowed to buy music, was not allowed to listen to music other than what my parents chose for me. But I remember those and wanting them so bad. And the first album I bought was actually a Boy George. Comic Chameleon.
Culture Club. Very good.
Yes, Culture Club. Not Boy. Was it
Boy George was the lead singer of
Yeah,
Culture
Boy George
Club.
Culture Club. Yes. Oh, and when my mom found that record, I was in trouble.
I bet
but anyway, the power of music when you're young is just so incredible. Okay, last song. What is your last song for you?
I am a massive Tracy Chapman fan. Just massive. Love Tracy Chapman.
Me too.
Just my whole life. Each of her albums is a period of my life where I listen to it. And I'm going to pick a song that is just timeless and comes back and it's really meaningful, which is New Beginnings. Which that whole album is insanely good. I was fortunate enough to live in Japan for a year. And after that, I backpacked around Southeast Asia and through Nepal, Tibet, India. Amazing experience. And we're going back a bit. So I had a Walkman and, I only had a backpack, right? So I only had 2 or 3 cassettes to listen to in the Walkman. And I didn't have all my favorite music, but I remember going to a restaurant in India, sitting outside in this beautiful garden with all the scents of these flowers. And they were playing this album. And I was with some fellow travelers and I wouldn't allow anyone to leave until the whole album had played through. Unfortunately, my friend got really bad food poisoning from that same restaurant, but the musical experience was great.
So your friend is like, Tracy Chapman, no. And you're like, Tracy Chapman, yes. Very different experiences. That is awesome. What a great story. I feel like I could listen to your stories forever. Okay, our last question. This is the Radical Audacity podcast, where we really look at living life in your integrity, your authenticity. It's often the hard road. It's very rarely the easy road, but it's the one that's right for you. And so I always like to finish up the interview asking, what is your latest act of radical audacity that you're really glad you said heck yes to?
Oh, that's a great question. So actually, I'm like feeling resistance, the throat chakra. And it's like my throat's like going, oh, you're really going to say this. But that just shows that it's something that's still in process and it is audacious. And for me, it's realizing that my message on manifesting for overthinking high achievers deserves to be heard. And I realized on my podcast, Goals with Soul, I do a lot of solo episodes. And every once in a while, I just talk about manifesting, but particularly from a place of being a person that felt that they were locked out the club. It's like I've read so many books, and yet the actual implementation of the law of attraction never seemed to be as easy as others made it look, because obviously when you're stuck in overthinking and you're holding on too tight and you're over efforting, and it's contrary to all the things we know about the law of attraction. And that had been my kind of modus operandi was that person. And I started to share where I was finding breakthroughs and things that were starting to work for me. And it's only recently I realized, and as I'm starting to overcome my imposter syndrome that says I'm not ready, who do you think you are, and all of this, that actually there's a lot of people that have felt similarly to me. And I need to start sharing that in a bigger way through my business, through the way that I work with people, what I talk about more. And as you'll know, we've had such an amazing conversation, and I'm only bringing this up now. This is like really new stuff coming through, because although it's been on my mind for a long time, I haven't felt that anyone would want to hear it from me, even though I have evidence that people have enjoyed those podcast episodes. Still, it's crazy the stories we tell ourselves, right?
Yes.
So my latest audacious act is to bring this to life in some way, to share it more, to express my journey and share that. And if that influences or encourages or inspires others, then I know that I'm on the right path. And it's a good thing to be audacious, because you have a lot of fun along the way. And I know that I'm going to enjoy it. So if nothing else, that's my next step. Have more fun, share more truths, speak out, be proud, stand in my power. And that's my flow right now.
So I know, listeners, that you cannot see Jo right now, but if you could, you would see like practically sparks coming out of her. Her face is lit up, smile from ear to ear, like skin actually glowing. I am
actually blushing, I think.
You're blushing a little bit, which is great. Like, you are truly lit up right now talking about this. And so I'm really glad you said it and you stated it, and you are living that true passion and interest for you. So thank you for sharing that with us.
Oh, thank you.
I know people are going to want to connect with you and reach out to you. How can they find you?
Yeah, best place is over on Instagram. My handle is IamJo.Ingram. That's IAMJO.Ingram. INGRAM. And yeah, you can find me over there. Shoot me a DM, say hi, let's connect. And just excited to kind of connect with people who are traveling the same path, who have had similar experiences. It's great to have these conversations, and I'm so excited by this conversation, Tiffany. Thank you.
Well, I am thrilled that you're here. I know everybody listening gained some beautiful wisdom and knowledge from you, and I'm hoping they're leaving just as elevated as I am. As I was telling you before we got on, my life this morning was absolutely bonkers insane, to the point where I was like, I don't know if we can do this interview. And I'm so glad. I am so glad I showed up for the interview, that this interview happened, and bonkers insane life can stay out there and we can just connect, because this has been wonderful. And I know I feel more full. So thank you very much. And thank you for being with us.
Thank you.
I don't know about you, but I left this interview feeling absolutely lit up and energized. I want to give you a tiny little background of what happened right before this interview. First of all, it's my youngest son's 12th birthday, and he decided he did not want to go to school today and instead wanted me to take him to Krispy Kreme donut for donuts, and he wanted to go to In-N-Out Burger for lunch. So we're having a little impromptu birthday celebration with a ton of junk food today, and my schedule kind of went out the window. On top of that, they're doing a ton of road work in my neighborhood. So it is crazy, it is noisy, and many of the roads are closed. And I live in a gated community, and the In-N-Out gate is closed. So we had to leave through a different way than normal. So, again, schedules things a little topsy-turvy, a little upside down. Anyway, as we are coming back from Krispy Kreme with warm donuts in hand, there is a dog running around at the entrance, right by a super busy road at the entrance to our community, beautiful little puppy golden doodle, fresh haircut. So I know this dog is loved, but there is no collar on this dog. And I almost hit the dog, and I'm terrified this dog will be hit. So we picked the dog up and brought it home and had made a ton of calls to neighbors and things like that, trying to find the owner of this dog. Long story short, the owner was found. But I am saying this because I went into the interview today with Jo really feeling discombobulated, right? Like nothing was going the way I had planned today. Nothing was going normal. I didn't even have a chance to get a shower today or do my normal workout. So I am discombobulated. And I even considered calling Jo and saying, hey, can we reschedule? I am not in the mindset to do your interview justice. But I didn't. I met her for the interview, and I am so glad I did, because this conversation with her centered me and grounded me and made me feel really lit up inside and really excited. I loved this framework that she uses, this EPICS framework, E for experience, which is it's your strengths. It's those things that you have, your life experience, the things you were raised with. Maybe they're cultural experiences, religious experiences, experiences with the people in your life, and just all of your lived experience. This is such a vital part of you, and these are your strengths. And then P, pain. That your pain is such an important part of you, your struggles, your pain points, your traumas, your trials, your tribulations. These are a beautiful piece of who you are and give you a framework for building your life with compassion and empathy and strength. Your interest, your passion. And I heard in this interview, I got excited about this one, being able to connect to our passion and our interest in anything we do in this life is absolutely vital. And then we get to C, which is character. This is your personality. This is the part where some people say, oh, you're too loud, you're too bossy, you're too noisy, you're too energetic, you're too slow, you're too whatever, right? People will always tell you you're too something. They told Jo she was too emphatic, and I was told I was too passionate. Like, as women, we're going to always be told we're too something. Let's embrace it. This is our character. This is our personality. This is an important part of who we are. So let's embrace that piece. I love that. And then S was skills. Skills. These are things you're inherently good at and things you have learned. Training, certifications. So what are you inherently good at? Are you a natural organizer? Are you a natural speaker? Are you a natural chef, cook, musician? Are you really good at endurance training, endurance activity, like long distance running? Are you really good at the short, fast little things like, are you a speed runner? Are you an artist, a musician? Like, what are your skills? And then what certifications do you have? So many of us have all these little certifications tucked under our belt that we don't even really think about. I mean, I was trained as a paralegal at 19 years old. So I have a little bit of paralegal training in my background that every once in a while does me really good when I need to kind of dip into legal jargon. It really helps me. I've got a little bit of an understanding with that. So what are your skills? I love her EPICS framework: experience, pain, interest, character, and skills, and taking that framework and using that to really dig deep inside and say, what does my authentic life look like? If I get rid of all the shoulds, all the things people tell me I should be doing, and I really dig into my authentic life, this is a great framework for digging in and saying, what would my authentic life look like? I hope you enjoyed this conversation. And if you did, I want to hear from you. Come reach out to me. You can find me on Instagram, Tiffany Gain. I'd love to hear what you thought of this. Send me a DM. I love having conversations with people in DMs, or you can email me. All of that information is in the show notes, but I do want to hear from you. And remember, if this episode meant something to you, you can really help me out by sharing the episode with a friend. And hit that subscribe button so that you get notified every time a new episode is released. I hope you have a beautiful day. I hope you feel inspired. And raise the volume of your voice. I'm listening.